This video will give you an overview of the new Fusion page. The new Fusion page has over 250 tools for compositing, paint, particles, and animated 3D titles and more. Now, to get started, simply position the playhead over any clip in the timeline and click on the Fusion page. Here, you'll see the viewers at the top, an inspector on the right, and the node editor at the bottom of the screen. Now, unlike other applications which use nested stacks of layers and filters, Fusion uses nodes to create visual effects. Each node is a tool or a building block for creating effects. Nodes can be connected together like a flowchart for image processing. On the left is the media in node for the clip on the timeline. It's connected to the media out node on the right, which represents the image that you will see on the edit page. To create a visual effects composite or to animate motion graphics, you simply place tools between the media in and the media out nodes. The toolbar in the middle of the screen contains the most commonly used tools. Here, we'll add a blur tool into the node graph and we'll place it in between the media in and media out nodes. Now, if we make an adjustment, we'll view the results while looking at the media out node in the viewer on the right and the media in node showing the original image in the viewer on the left. You make your adjustments by modifying parameters in the inspector. If you want to remove a node, just select it and hit delete. More tools can be accessed from the FX library at the top left. Here, all of Fusion's tools are organized into categories. Just like the toolbar, simply drag any tool into the node graph and insert it into the graph. So some tools, like this grid warp, have controls in the inspector as well as on-screen controls, where you can directly modify the image just by dragging. Once you've created the effect, you can go back to the edit page and return to editing. Once you understand the node graph, you can begin to composite multiple images together very easily. We'll return to the Fusion page on this shot so we can add a computerized heads-up display that she's supposed to be looking at. Since the Fusion page is fully built into DaVinci Resolve 15, you can open the media pool to access any bin or clip in your project. Here, we'll grab this animated computer graphic and press the 1 key to see it in the viewer on the left. Now we'll add the merge tool, which is one of the most common tools for combining two images together. We'll connect the clip of our female character as the background to the merge tool and connect the computer screen as the foreground image. You'll see the results of the merge tool in the viewer on the right. Now, to make this composite more realistic, we'll add a blur tool to the screen, inserting it after the computer screen, but before the merge will cause the blur only to affect the screen and not the clip of the woman. This will make it appear as if the camera is focused on her face. So we can further enhance the composite by selecting the merge tool on the node graph and then use common composite modes like multiply, screen, or in this case, lighten, to blend the two images together. The last step will be to merge in a third element to simulate glare in the glass. Now to do that, we'll take the output of the first merge and add that as a background into another merge. We'll use Fusion's vector paint tool to paint glare on her visor. To add paint, we'll need to use a background node as a canvas to paint on. Now the quickest way to add a tool is to use the keyboard shortcut Shift Spacebar. Now that brings up the Select Tool window. We'll enter the name of the tool and press Enter to add it to the node graph. Then we'll grab the paint tool from the toolbar and connect it to the background node. The paint tool now gets connected as the foreground to our new merge tool. Now since the black canvas is the foreground, we'll make it transparent so we can see the background clip. Now we'll select the paint tool on the node graph to begin making our glare. The paint tool has a number of different painting styles to choose from along the top of the viewer. We'll select the basic stroke tool. The inspector has a variety of brush controls for creating the brush type you want to paint with. We'll use a soft brush style. Apply controls allow you to paint with a brush color, a clone brush, as well as emboss, smear, and even a brush specifically designed for wire removal. For our glare, we'll just need a simple white colored brush. To change the brush size, hold down the Command key and drag in the viewer. Next, we'll paint a few large brush strokes in the upper left and another in the lower right where we want our glare to appear. Since the paint tool is vector-based, we can use the modifier tab to adjust any aspect of the paint strokes we want to change, including size, color, or even the path of the stroke itself. For our purposes, it's right where we want it. In the Merge node, set a composite mode, and the blend parameter will create a subtle glare effect we want. Understanding the simple, basic building blocks of the Merge node, the inspector and the viewers can help you create everything from simple touch-ups to amazing visual effects and motion graphics. But the most revolutionary feature of having Fusion built into DaVinci Resolve 15 is that you have access to any clip in your timeline, and not just from the edit page. Using the clip button, you can display thumbnails of every cut in your timeline and instantly jump to a new shot. Now that we're done with that, with this next shot, we're going to replace the Watch Your Step sign on the wall with the one that says Caution Radiation. Then key out the green screen and create a 3D composite to complete our scene. So let's start by adding a planar tracker and connecting the output from the source footage to the tracker's input. Now with the tracker selected, press the 1 key to view it on viewer 1 on the left. All right, let's make a selection around the caution sign to tell Fusion what area we need to track. Then go to the inspector, click on Set Frame. Now click the Track Forward button. Fusion will analyze the footage based on the luminance channel and our selection. Once it finishes tracking, you can click the Create Planar Transform button to create a new node that contains the position tracking data needed for our composite. Next, we'll drag the new sign in from the media pool. Now our new sign has an alpha channel, and to display it properly on our composite, we're going to need to add an alpha multiply node. We'll connect this to the planar transform node so the sign moves with the rest of the shot. Okay, let's finish this composite by adding a merge tool and connect it to the planar transform node, compositing our foreground sign over the background green screen. So as you can see, it's close, but we still need to make some adjustments to make it seamless. Let's grab a color corrector node from the toolbar and place it after the planar transform node. Okay, so with the color corrector node selected, go to the inspector and change the menu from color to levels. Now to animate, we're going to right-click on the gamma level and select Animate. This is going to set a keyframe and turns on animation, so any new changes will automatically make new keyframes. We'll move forward to around frame 60. Adjust the gamma. Now let's check the middle and adjust as needed. Okay, great. We've just finished our first composite. Now let's tidy up our flow and help keep things organized by turning our tracking nodes into a group node. All right, now we're ready to move on to keying our footage. With the Merge tool selected, let's add a delta keyer after the Merge tool. We'll use this to remove the green screen. Because we don't have a shot of the green screen without the actor, it's kind of hard to key, so we'll add a clean plate tool to have Fusion help generate one for us. Just so you know, the image needs to go to both the clean plate and the delta keyer. The output of the clean plate also needs to go into the delta keyer. We're trying to give Fusion as much information as possible as we can so that it can do a better job for us. All right, let's view the clean plate in viewer 1 and the delta keyer in viewer 2. You can see that Fusion is attempting to make a key for us. So with the clean plate selected, you can drag across a range of green and see the delta keyer on the right adjust. All right, so let's go to the inspector, click on the fill checkbox, and then adjust the erode and grow edge parameters. This tells the delta keyer to look for anything green in this part of the image and remove it. The clean plate tool makes everything significantly easier. All right, next we'll select the delta keyer node and adjust a few of its parameters to fine-tune the key. While viewing our alpha channel, we can use a threshold to dial in our matte. Now that the key is done, we can organize these nodes with another group node, keeping our flow nice and tidy. Now it's time to add our background. We'll grab the elements from the media pool and let's drag them into the node graph. Renaming the nodes will make them easier to work with. You can load the first element in viewer 1 and see that it's a planet. So let's right-click on this node, select Rename, and type Planet. We'll go ahead and do the same for the spaceship windows. Up until now, we have composited everything in 2D. Now to bring this together, we're going to composite our background in 3D space. This requires all of our footage, which is two-dimensional, to be placed on image planes that we can arrange in a 3D space. So we'll add an image plane to both the planet and the spaceship. Because we're in 3D, we now need to use the Merge 3D tool. This is more powerful than a regular Merge tool because you can add as many objects as you want, image planes, lights, cameras, and then work with all of them right in 3D space. So here's the story. We need to match the movement of our live action camera. so our composite works seamlessly. One way to do this is with the camera tracker. To get started, we'll grab the source video and any mats that might be needed. If you have moving objects in your clip, you're going to need to mat them out with a mask. That way the camera tracker can ignore those areas and just focus on the stationary objects in the scene. Convert this to an alpha channel by adding a bitmap. With our object mask connected, let's go and press the auto track button to begin tracking. Once your track is complete, the next step is setting up your camera to match how your footage was filmed to solve for a proper track, followed by 3D solving your tracks into 3D space, and lastly, we're ready to export. Fusion creates a point cloud, a ground plane, a render node, and a keyframed camera that matches the movement of your footage. Although this process is straightforward, you should allow proper time to let each step process based on your clip. So with our camera solved, let's connect the camera node to our Merge 3D. And as we move around our 3D environment, we can see the camera and its keyframes. Let's composite this with our foreground green screen to see how it lines up. Go ahead and organize these nodes into a group node as well. First, we need to add a render node to bring our 3D elements back into 2D. Now, if you notice, Fusion automatically makes the connection between the two nodes. Now that we have our background aligned and tracked in 3D, and now rendered into 2D, we can composite them together with the Merge node. You can see that the 3D planes need some adjustments. Let's view the 3D merge in Viewer 1 so we can see our results of being adjusted in Viewer 2. Select the planet and let's adjust the y-axis in the viewer. All right, great. Now go ahead and adjust the ship into position as well. We're almost there. We'll finish this shot by adding some color correction. So first, we'll color the key image. So we'll add a color corrector from the toolbar after the delta key here. And let's make some adjustments. And we'll add some blue to the shot. Next, we'll add another color corrector after the final merge and adjust the rest of the image. For a little added realism, we'll add a defocus node to the 3D elements and set the blur to around 1. Okay, great. Now that we've done our tracking, keying, and 3D compositing, let's see our results on the edit page. In case you were wondering, in addition to visual effects, the Fusion page can also be used for making high-quality animated motion graphics. We'll use them to make a 3D title with some particles for our movie. We'll start by adding a 3D text node. With our text node selected, add a camera. Because the text node was selected, Fusion automatically adds a 3D merge tool for you. So go ahead and select the text node, and let's create the base for our title. Type in the name of the film, change the font, and let's adjust the tracking a bit. Even though we're working in 3D space, the text is still 2D. So to give it some dimension and depth, we'll go to the Extrude tab and adjust the extrusion depth, bevel depth, and bevel width. So now let's add a directional light and change some of its settings in the inspector. Let's go ahead and put the X rotation at about -100. Go back to the color tab, adjust the color to a light blue. Okay, so with our light selected, add a point light. And let's adjust its decay type to linear and its intensity to around 0.5 or half. In the 3D viewer, place it under the letter Y. Now just a note, Fusion created a new Merge 3D and added our lights to this node. In the Merge 3D node, select Pass Through Lights. So go ahead and copy our point light and paste 3 more copies. Placing a light under the E, G, and T. For the last T, we'll push it back in Z space so it's not so intense. All right, now with our scene set up, let's start animating. Select the text node, go to frame 40, and let's set a key for our character spacing. Move to about frame 20 and adjust to around 4. To give our text some dynamic or sequential animation, we can right-click on the text field and select the follower. Now let's go to the Modifiers tab and start modifying. Double-click the follow title and change the order to inside out and the delay to about 7. In the Shading tab, let's animate the X and Y rotations, 200 for X and 90 for Y. set a key in our parameters, and move to frame 40. And go ahead and reset them back to 0. Go to the position and animate the Z offset to have the text fly in from past the camera. Okay, so now we're going to open up our timeline by clicking on the Keyframes tab and move some keyframes around. Select the drop-down menu and click on Show Tool Selected. This will hide all the other nodes and only show us the nodes that we have selected. It's pretty handy. Now let's go ahead and adjust the character spacing to finish towards the end of the shot. And let's move the angle X to about the 55 frame mark. Close the Keyframes panel and open up the Spline panel. This Spline panel is incredibly powerful. Select an individual parameter and click on the Zoom to Fit button. Now with that done, select all the keyframes and press Shift-S to smooth out our splines. Do this for the rest of the animated parameters, and we can watch it in the viewer. Now we're ready to add some particles. Before we do this, let's go ahead and tidy up our flow and keep things organized and in place. Select all the 3D nodes and add an underlay tool. Now, an underlay tool is always open, but it allows you to keep your nodes contained and gives you the ability to move them all at once. Now we're ready to add a particle emitter, direction force, friction, and a particle renderer. To output any particles, you always need to have a particle renderer for either 2D or 3D particles. So let's make some changes to our emitter. Let's put number 1 from 10 to about 1,000, and the lifespan to about 30. In the Style tab, change it from point to blob. Real quick, go to the 3D viewer, right-click, and change the transparency to full sort. All right, back in the inspector. Let's adjust some size and fade parameters as well as color. In the Region tab, let's change it to Mesh. This will allow us to use a 3D object, or mesh. So now we can connect our 3D text to the particle emitter. Let's increase our friction and see what we have. All right, great. So let's go ahead and animate the particle emitter so it turns on at around frame 20. And starts to turn off around frame 70. Just keep in mind that we're taking a simple approach to particles. There are many options and creative ways to use them inside of Fusion. Now let's composite our text and particles with our footage. Add a 3D merge to the particle renderer and connect the camera to this as well. This will allow us to have one camera shared across multiple 3D scenes. In the 3D viewer, adjust the view as if it were the camera. Then right-click on the XYZ tool and select Copy this view to camera. This is a great visual way of animating a 3D camera, by the way. In order to composite our 3D titles and our particles, we need to add render nodes to take our 3D environments and render it into a 2D image. Go ahead and quickly create another underlay for our particles. Now let's see this all come together. First, let's merge our 3D text over our footage. And lastly, we'll merge our particles. We're almost done, but let's sweeten up our look. With the text renderer node selected, add a brightness contrast, glow, soft glow, and another glow. Select all these nodes. And when you do, you'll see that all their controls are displayed in the inspector, so you can adjust them. Let's go ahead and add some contrast. Bring down our first glow. And in our soft glow, let's adjust the threshold. And let's streak out our last glow, taking the x-axis all the way up and the y-axis all the way down. And while we're at it, go ahead and change the color as well. Great. Now, copy and paste our glow and soft glow, and let's use them for our particles. But just so you know, we might need to adjust them to fit our particles a little bit better. All right, so let's just add one more thing, a background node. So add a background node, change its color to yellow, yellow-orange, and then take the output of our 3D text renderer and put it to the mask input of our background node. Now merge this in between our text merge and particle merge. Set the apply mode to overlay and animate this merge on with the blend parameter. Now, this is a nice little extra touch. It just kind of helps bring the title out. And because we're using a composite mode, it'll blend perfectly right in. And when you're finished, you can take a look at the finished title on the edit page. With Fusion built in to DaVinci Resolve 15, you'll be able to create incredible cinematic visual effects and motion graphics without having to use a separate application. Best of all, you can download your free copy from the Blackmagic Design website and try it today.